this question, but this information and this deep understanding and the ability to produce these diagrams and stuff, is that coming from memory of when you've done this before in previous times, or is it coming directly down through work through the inner planes, or I'm just...
All of the above.
All of the above, okay.
Techniques, yeah, but new information. Using, the techniques have been upgraded.
Mm-hmm.
The Rochelle system was it was scrubbed virtually in the late 1800s, upgraded and rebooted through Hawaii in the early 70s. And so we're getting an upgraded version of the Rochelle tailored to this 19th cycle now, and that is being radically rewritten right now. So it's vital in all of our processes, including me in the past involvement with Roslyn and stuff, to dump it. And if I don't, I'm going to jack around this streaming coming in on these Metatronic dynamics. Mm-hmm. And they are way, way different than anything we've been trained for. And now, going beyond that, we have agencies coming in now working through our group that our main work, our main effort is to do nothing and keep out of the way. But in doing that, we are forming a very efficient gate or processor or an interface gateway for that to come through without being jacked around and distorted. To answer your question, most of what was in the past is pretty much just erased.
Mm-hmm.
So,
not because it's bad, but because it's just outdated.
There's
a difference. It's
yeah.
not bad. It's not useless.
Right.
It's just outdated.
Right, yeah.
It's
So what Edie and I have to do in our group here and the other groups is to really not carry any kind of baggage at all, good or bad, in karmic stuff into what's happening, because it just get in the way, distort the flow. I don't know, did that answer that?
It did a bit. I mean, I have so many questions, but I'll suffice it with that for now.
Okay.
So thank you.
Well, we get an instruction through our weekly channel. Okay.
I have a quick question around, does that mean with the new download, does that mean that the cycles are changing, like how long a cycle is? And like
they never were locked into a specific date. This last cycle, the 19th, probably began when Atlantis went down, and that was about 9,500 BCE in linear time. So that's about 11, 12,000 years ago, a short cycle. So we don't know the length of the plane. We won't be told. Okay, so lunchtime.
Oh, can I ask you, when you say agencies, what do you mean?
2 hours for lunch.
Ask him that when you come back.
Light lunch, by the way, because the Earth is streaming out a constant coding to the surface and all the inner Earth realities too, at the same time. And a lot of times we'll pick up that hum. And sometimes it's a thud or a clank or a bang. When there's a buffer up on the surface of consciousness that usually people don't hear, but it's very close in the etheric range. That's what a lot of times people do, particularly if our time continuum, the definitions of time, are breaking down or shift than people are more used to. We're being exposed to a higher level of energy at that time. But it's safe. Now, the Montauk people, when they're dealing with the time, particularly when they shifted out here to the Taos area, everybody in about 4 states was hearing that hum. They figured it was some sort of a government project, so they demanded a hearing in Congress, an investigation, to check it out, and one explanation. Governors were interested in it and trusted it. So it was a big deal back then. Also, when you fiddle with time in their range, you get what's called time storms. Very intense storms. You continue off, the teleplanes are phase matching, and that gets a whole lot of activity on all planes in between them in this teleplane. And so that might get a series. Back then, when they were doing it, they were flooding the Midwest area and the whole continent for a couple months. So anyway, this Atoma hum is more pronounced nowadays. It's more discernible.
Is it a time storm, or is this something that's coming from the center of the Earth, or what are we talking
Well,
about?
the time storm is when the definitions of time are being shifted. They can be shifted on purpose, or with the Montauk people, they're not very, they're not that smart. They really don't know what's happening, but so they don't really know the science. So in their fooling around, breaking down time definitions with their experiments and projects, that impacts the streaming, it impacts the buffer zone mainly. It makes it unstable in terms of consciousness. So that in turn, when they're with their time stuff, they're bringing in other realities, time continua, that are phase matching. Now when that happens, then the buffer effect is minimized, and we begin to hear the tones. The tones are good. They're programming, are in an ascension, evolution, overall programming. So that doesn't necessarily have a direct impact on the creation of the storms. It's the breaking down of the definitions and bringing those continuum into a phase match that creates a storm. The potentials are transferring back and forth, and then it gets down into the physical, etheric range.
Are you saying that the storms, like the hums that were heard back east and the governors were interested in, are you saying that those were time storms, or part of the Atoma hum?
No, that wasn't. That was the Atoma hum. But they were also getting rainstorms, and that was an effect, but it wasn't that violent an effect, because they weren't really that closely matched. But it was enough that there was getting a thunderstorm activity that generated higher storm, but not really up in the super typhoon range.
You mentioned pops, hearing pops, and as the hum's coming through, you might hear a pop or something like that as it enters the consciousness. Did I hear that right?
I think, yeah. Pop, static, sometimes clanks, bangs, as in the steady hum.
Bangs, yeah.
But it's
Loud.
remembering that this is a sort of a phase matching situation going on, and so it's basically unstable. So you get more of a static in the line, I guess. Okay, anyway, got to march on here. For you scientific people, that's the explanation of that neutral universe or altered point. And if you want to look at that at your leisure, why it's open on the, I have a website where I stick all these things. I've been using for email. Now I have to shift over to a real site. But anyway, it's available later.
Next.
Next. This is an example of the L, or the rhombic time gate. It's you can zoom in a little bit more, I think. Yeah, that's good. That's good. I wanted some examples of this rhombic time gate, or L shift. This is from the Lindisfarne Gospels, about the 4th century or 5th. Here we have a Celtic knot arrangement, and it's divided into sections. Here's 2, then there's 4, and then 2, and then 1. In Hebrew, 2, 4, 2, 1, bad ba, translates down to the coming and going, or an operation of the gateway. It's a little bit more, put the word meanings together, it gives you a little bit more information on it. But back then they knew full well what a time gate was and how it operated. It's interesting that they're using the Celt format with the Judeo-Christian. If you go back far enough, there's connections. Here we have the Eden tree with a serpent coated in it. Up here, it's hard to see with all the lines, but in this area, if you look at it from one way, you see a bird. If you look at it from another way, you see a whale. And you also, with the serpent bird symbolism, you have what's called the staff of Asclepius. It's also a constellation, Ophiuchus, and people think that that's the 13th sign, but it isn't, according to Thoth. When that staff, the bird serpent staff of creation, also heals, when that is activated and mastered, then it opens the 13th sign, which is the cetacean, or Delphinus in Capricorn. Is the 13th sign. And that synthesizes all 12. So that's what this thing does. The bird connects in and it becomes a whale. So anyway, that's so we have this particular staff here with the golden ratio where it forms here and here. 5 square. This is 1/2 of the rhombus. The other half is down below. This is a study in different rings or systems that this thing creates. A 20-pole ring is in this, and with a 20-pole ring, it's called geochronism. You're getting very strong resonance between whatever's going on and the planet itself. So when you see that, particularly in crop formations and how they work, which we see quite often, we're getting a very strong resonance. We have a handout on geochronism, which is really an important thing to have. Okay, so let's go on to the next one. Any questions about that, by the way? Okay, go ahead. That's the rhombus effect. There are 2 that work together, and in the Pillar of Solomon Temple, it has an example. One rhombus would be on the left would be the Boaz pillar. The other pillar is the Yachem, and that is a polarized system we use in light work too. Now those 2 pillars, though you activate those things using the rhombic implosion, that opens the gate to any time, any place, any event, any universe where you need to go. And it does it safely and accurately. Now the thing is, with those 2 pillars, there's a third one in the middle. Well, that's where the action is. 2 sets you up in a certain field, and then that permits you then to activate the center one. So in the Rochelle system, you find these installed as part of it. Okay, let's go on to the next one. Okay. That is 1/2 of the Rochelle grid. This lists different systems in it. Right here. We have a Grail, there's a golden ratio, well, okay. Here we have the Great Pyramid dynamic. There's a teledisk or plane across here. This is a cup that creates a Grail reality system. This thing flashes into existence constantly. This is the thing that organizes the consciousness states of being constantly in this flashing universe. That's the overall thing where it's working here. So it has these systems that key in a sequence, correct sequence, for creating this kind of a Metatronic reality. And then it discreates that when it pulls apart in this flashing cycling on constantly, and it's using this thing to constantly keep up to date and regenerate reality. So the teleplane in this thing is this plane right here. So all these systems here are the thing that generates the new reality constantly in this plane here. There's actually 2 of them there. It's a little bit more complicated. Okay, so the Grail and also the Great Pyramid. There's the equilateral triangle, which creates the star tetrahedron. Then there's a 5-pointed star, or universal seeding system. There are other things too, and I don't want to take the time, but this is just to introduce you to a Metatronic breastplate or system. Metatron has 24 breastplates or systems for operating all the universes. So this is the 3rd one, but it includes several others. The pyramid is actually part of a large cube, and the midden chamber is middle of the cube sphere is where the main action is. So, particularly if you've been studying Maya's material, talk about pyramids, the midden chamber is where you start getting the ascension dynamics and the real action all centers literally in that area. And I've just been passing, well, I'll be getting into it in the next 5 days. This pyramid, the Great Pyramid, temple of all temples, has been radically upgraded by the crop formations in this season into something called the Ra Star 2000. And that is a major upgrade, that's all I'll say at this point. But it's necessary for the Sha-Alura movement to happen. This system, with the Ra Star upgrade, there's a grid that spans, by the formation, spans Italy, France, and up into the UK. In the UK, the formations there have built a smaller one, but it spans about halfway across a new system.
Is that in Wiltshire?
Hmm?
Is that in Wiltshire too in England? Where in England? Do you know?
Yeah, in fact, I'll show it to you in the Beuhler eventually. It's north of Beuhler, but it's connected. All right.